They sent us to the end of the Kazakhstan steppe, a bleak, unforgiving stretch of windward land where rusted fences led nowhere and the horizon buzzed like a tuning fork. The wind still bit through 2 layers of thermals. The roads were barely roads at all, just tire gouge scars in frozen soil. No birds, no herders, no villages. Just empty land and silence for miles. When satellites fall, they're supposed to burn up in the atmosphere or land in the ocean, far away from anything that matters. That's how they're designed, but sometimes things go wrong. A miscalculation, a failed thruster, or a misfire in orbit. When they come down on land, it's our job to make it go away. We're contractors, a cleanup crew that log the telemetry, recover anything that didn't vaporize, and flag what might belong in a black box. Most of it's worth slack by the time it hits Earth. Once or twice, we've pulled out something interesting, sensitive, usually gets taken off our hands before we can even ask what it was. This mission standard, 8 of us were assigned with 2 trucks, fold-out tents, portable uplinks, satellite relays, a drone, and a ground-penetrating radar unit. The site was flagged by orbital trackers. Something had come down hard and fast. We expected scorched wreckage and a couple long days shoveling sand and mud. Maybe a bonus if anything survived intact. But something was off from the start. The telemetry was jittery. GPS would lock, then drift. The terrain didn't quite match the coordinates. It was like the maps themselves didn't want us here. And it was quiet. We got to work anyway. Carson, our team lead, oversaw the equipment setup. The text calibrated the radar. I was helping drive rebar stakes when the beacon came through. It wasn't a dead ping. It was active. Short burst compressed, repeating on a tight interval. Stronger than any beacon I'd heard on a recovery job. That got everyone's attention. Usually those signals stop the moment the hole burns, but this one it was transmitting. We thought maybe a hardened core had survived. Black box guidance unit. Who knows? But the signal didn't triangulate at surface level. We ran a GPR scan. The data came back clean. Beneath the topsoil, maybe 10 m down, was a structure, possibly a shattered hunk of metal. Not just scattered debris, but maybe a whole chunk of fuselage. That's not possible, Carson muttered. The signal was coming from inside it. Whatever it was, it had survived orbital descent, impact, and burial. The surface showed the usual debris scatter. Scott's paneling, shattered fins, a few fragments warped beyond recognition. All standard stuff for a satellite crash. But beneath that, buried deeper than expected, was something big. The text figured it had to be a telemetry core or maybe a reinforced payload container. The kind that's designed to survive re-entry in case of failure. That would explain the signal, too. Maybe it had been programmed to ping even after a crash to make recovery easier. Hell, maybe we get a salvage bonus. So we started plotting the dig. First, we measured soil density. Then, we checked the frost layers and runoff paths. The permafrost was thick here. Excavating it would take time and precision, especially if we didn't want to crush whatever was buried beneath us. We'd be digging by hand or close to it, slow work. Then mid-conversation, Jacob's radio flared up. A burst of static broke through his headset, followed by a strained, stuttering voice. "Is anyone up there? Hello? Please, I'm trapped. I don't know where I am." Everyone froze. We stared at Jacobs, then at each other. He looked as surprised as the rest of us. Carson took over immediately, checking the frequency. "Say again." "Identify yourself." A pause then. "I can hear you. Please dig. It's dark. I'm alone. Help me." The blood drained from my face. That satellite wasn't manned. No satellite ever is. They don't send people up in those things. They're too small, fragile. That wasn't their purpose. Even the military ones are remote operated. There's no room for a cockpit. No reason for a crew. So, who the hell was talking to us? We cycled frequencies, checked the relays. The signal wasn't bouncing from anywhere else. It wasn't interference. The origin point was right where the beacon was, 10 m underground. We tried asking more questions. Where are you from? How long have you been down there? What's your name? But the voice never answered directly. It just kept begging, please help me, please dig. It's getting harder to breathe. At one point it sobbed. It didn't ask who we were or ask how we'd found it. He just begged to be freed. Carson called it in protocol. Any anomaly, especially one involving unexpected transmissions, had to be logged immediately. We huddled around the portable satellite uplink, the signal cutting in and out as he explained the situation to the contact rep on the client's end, some mid-level handler for a private aerospace firm whose name I couldn't even pronounce. He kept it professional, calm, said the beacon was still active, that the internal casing might have survived impact, and then, almost like an afterthought, added, "There's been a voice on the radio claims someone's alive down there." The reply came back after a pause, a dry chuckle, then a sigh, like he'd just been asked the dumbest question in the world. "Yeah, no, that's not possible. The unit was unmanned, all of them are. You should know that. We checked the source," Carson said. "The signal lines up with the buried object." The voice on the other end turns slightly sharp. "Radios bleed. You're hearing feedback. Crossover maybe. Who knows what kind of interference you're getting out there?" We asked it direct questions. Carson said it answered. "Well," the rep said, his tone already checked out. "Get the telemetry core, tag the wreckage, file your report. Leave the ghost stories out of it." The line went dead. We stood there for a while just looking at each other. Nobody said it, but the unease had started to spread. If it had been static, we could have ignored it, or if it had been nonsense, we could have blamed the radios. But the voice was clear, panicked, and human. We tried to reason it out. Maybe it was bleed from another channel or someone near by using the same band. It could have been a prank, some ham operator screwing around, but that all of this was unlikely in the middle of nowhere. Carson finally broke the silence. "All right, we keep moving. We have a job to do. Officially, we're recovering materials." "That's it," and unofficially someone asked. Carson didn't answer, but everyone knew. Some of us wanted to get the job done and go home. The rest of us, we wanted to know who was down there. That night, the wind picked up. The temperature dropped hard and fast, like something had sunk its weight into the air. I sat in my bunk, trying to sleep. The low murmur of radios carried between tense like distant breathing. Then mine lit up. Just for a second, a flash of static, a voice no louder than a whisper. "You heard me, didn't you?" By the next morning, the crew had started to split. Not outwardly, just subtle shifts in tone. People stood in small clumps now, muttering over breakfast, side-eyeing the radio set. Some of the team were convinced someone had to be alive down there, had to be. They couldn't shake the voice, the cadence, the fear. It didn't sound artificial or like a recording. You don't fake the way someone chokes back a sob, but others weren't buying it. The rational ones maybe, or just the scared ones in disguise. They said it was interference, that even if it was real, even by some cosmic fluke, a person had ended up inside that thing. There was no way they'd be alive after the fall. No food or oxygen on a satellite. No explanation could reasonably explain what we heard. Carson tried to keep things grounded. He was a by-the-books kind of guy, and by the book. We were here to recover orbital debris, not perform search and rescue missions from possible voices. Whether it's a person or a beacon, he told us flatly, we're here to dig, get to it, so we did. The GPS scans came back with more detail this time. The object wasn't just a dense cluster or some tangled core of junk metal. It had shape, defined edges, corners, symmetry. The technician squinted at the readout and said, half laughing, "Looks more like a room than a chunk of fuselage." Nobody laughed. Lucas started acting strangely, quieter than usual, twitchy. He was one of the older guys, wore his faith like a second skin, always had a rosary looped around his wrist, even when running cable. When the scan came through, he just stared at it, lips moving, but no sound coming out. Later, someone overheard him saying it wasn't a crash at all. "It's a demon," he muttered. When pressed, he shut down completely. Wouldn't explain, just shook his head and returned to work, but slower now, twitchier, mumbling prayers under his breath whenever the radio crackled. That night I couldn't sleep again. The wind had died, but the silence somehow felt louder than ever, like the world itself was on mute. As I passed Lucas's tent, I heard his voice low and shaky. "Don't talk to it," he whispered. "Don't look at it. It's not stuck, it's waiting. The digging was slow. The ground didn't want to give. Even with the right tools, it felt like we were scratching at something that didn't want to be found." I took my break past the camp perimeter, just outside the flagged boundary. The air was sharper out there, more open. The quiet that makes you feel like you're being watched by the land itself. I was stretching my back when I heard it. Her voice, low, muffled, careful. I followed the sound around one of the supply trailers, quiet as I could. That's when I saw Kyle crouched behind the tires, hunched over a handheld shortwave radio. He was whispering into it as if it were a lifeline. "I know I miss you too. Soon, okay, I promise." He jumped the second I stepped around the corner and spotted me. Fumbled the radio off like a kid caught, smoking behind a gas station. "Geez, man," he said too loud. "You scared the hell out of me." "Who are you talking to?" I asked. He gave me a crooked smile. "My wife missed our check-in last night. She gets anxious when I'm off-grid." I looked down at the radio. Shortwave, no satellite link, no repeater access. It wasn't even on the same band we were using. "You can't reach anyone on that," I said. He shrugged like it didn't matter and stood. "Guess I got lucky," he said. Then he walked off casual like it wasn't the creepiest thing I'd seen all day. That night I couldn't sleep. Sometime past midnight, just as I was slipping between thoughts, the radio on the shelf above my bunk came to life. Just a soft click, like someone picking up a line they shouldn't have access to. Then a voice, calm, familiar, but not quite. "You're tired," it said. I sat up slowly, didn't answer. "You don't have to pretend, not out here, not with me." There was something soothing in the cadence, like the voice of someone you'd known for years.